Christopher. How you doing tonight?
Fantastic. How are things there in Hollywood?
Hollywood's moving, although I think what's going on behind the curtain is a little bit more interesting than what's happening, in the reality. I think there's so much heightened spiritual energy. As you and I are talking, we're talking on the full moon in Pisces right now.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And as you often observe with full moon passages, we here in Chicago area had one heck of a storm come through. We had thunder bumpers and incredible lightning displays. So that was really a beautiful way to see the moon come into fullness.
Yeah, talk about the Sea King. I mean, it is. I was just in a nap before I came on here, and I have been going to some deep places in my dreams. And I think Friday, to start this week off, talk about a bang. I mean, we have Pluto going direct here as a full moon is exact here on Friday, and you know, uh, it's like you just can't ask for more of a turning point, I think, in all our lives.
Right. And we're also seeing a lot of other activity with the rest of the planets. The only two planets right now that are still retrograde are Neptune and Pluto. Or no, Uranus, pardon me. Pluto is moving forward. So we're getting a lot of mobilization energy now, whereas for a while there, when we had the preponderance of the heavy planets going backwards, it really felt like everything was very bogged down. And now I think everybody's starting to notice, it's starting to clear out, it's starting to move forward. And this full moon kind of puts a cap on the cycle that we have been in. And I think now we're going to see some progress pretty much across the board.
Yeah, there is a lot of electricity today because this full moon then turns into this moon coming into Aries, and it conjuncts Uranus as it's going to square the new Pluto direct. So Friday is one of those days that you will remember always. Pluto direct is a huge transformation, and this is bringing, nuclear power. It's like a nuclear power plant turning on.
Yeah, it absolutely is. The interesting thing is that everything is lined up here so that Sunday, when we actually experience the equinox, the autumnal equinox, we're really going to see things start to balance out. We've got equal day, equal night. Sunday is going to, I believe Sunday is going to be a really good day for a lot of people, simply because we're going to have that sense of balance being restored. We've still got some edgy energy with Uranus. Exactly. In what's the word for it? In that dynamic of conflict with Pluto. But other than that, I think we're seeing a lot of things clear out. And we will also notice the moon transiting through on Friday and opposing Mercury. So be aware that what you say could get you either in advance at work or in serious trouble. So pay attention to those oppositions that are going on.
Yeah, and plus Mercury is just coming off a square of Jupiter, which I think is very important. Communication in our minds have, in a way, been going through a lot of change as Mercury went through a week-long process of squaring Pluto, of opposing Uranus, of squaring Jupiter. While we were going through so much change, it's almost like you don't even realize Mercury is such a small planet. Yet it's like we have been reconfiguring our thoughts, we've been reconfiguring our idea of things, weighing so many things out, and going through so much change. It really has kind of thrown us a little bit, off kilter here to kind of like regain our balance this weekend as Mercury finally comes off this big, T-square and cardinal cross energy. And it is that final position of the moon opposing Mercury that is the signal of us finally clearing our heads. So I think you're right about this weekend as the release, as really starting to feel this new energy of this new change of Pluto direct. This full moon has come to its culmination. And Venus moving off of Saturn and the node, and kind of releases this restraint or, the seriousness around, the playful side of Venus that's in an intense sign like Scorpio. We are going to see this nice release coming, and the moon trines Pluto on Sunday as the moon comes into Taurus this weekend, and it does kind of ground things out.
No, it does. It gives us that sigh of relief kind of shift. But we do have to, be mindful of Saturn's activity down there because it is slowly moving into conjunct that node exactly, and that does have potential to bring some things up from the past. I also see the nodes as dealing with karma, as dealing with either things in this life that you have not finished up or things from past life situations. So we're going to see that intensify because Saturn is, again, the great teacher, and it's going to really bear down on people who are not really invested in clearing the past and releasing the elements in the past that keep them attached, to keep them from advancing. So over the next 2 weeks, we are definitely going to feel that Saturnian disciplinarian, the kind of school marm thing, smacking us in our hands with the ruler and making us pay attention.
Big time. I think whenever Pluto is involved and it's connected with Saturn and the node, I mean, this is this very weird instruction time and restructuring moment that sometimes you don't see until the long term. For some people who are looking at this energy and are trying to understand astrology, sometimes you can be like, okay, yes, we know there's a lot of change happening, but what is this all, leading towards? I think a lot of this is kind of one of those turning points that you remember as farther down the road. We are dealing with long-term energy. Saturn is always for the long haul. It's a 30-year cycle, and this is happening with a node, which is destiny, and this very intense energy of Scorpio, which sometimes is hidden. Sometimes you don't see exactly on the surface what's happening. Sometimes it's so deep inside that nobody can see other people's changes. Sometimes it's deep inside your gut. Sometimes it's deep inside your emotions. I mean, this is dealing with so many different angles. I think it can just become so overwhelming when you look back weeks from now, months from now, and years from now about what happened during this last couple weeks.
Yes, definitely. And, as you pointed out with Pluto interactive there, Pluto is the generational planet. So, each generation has its own unique kind of karmic destiny and has its own obligation to commit to the evolution, the unfolding of, our human awakening down here, so that we are moving more and more toward integrating the physical and the spiritual realms. And so that generational effect will probably make you a little bit sensitive to people your age or a few years younger than you, a few years older than you, and how a lot of elements are paralleling your life with that generational influence. So once again, we're all in the same boat, but we do have obligations that each generation carries with it.
Really well put. That's the beauty of Pluto. It is those generations, and I think it's important for you to understand your Pluto very well in your chart, because it does represent in many ways, I believe, the mission of your soul as well, a hidden mission, one that's kind of embedded in the generation, almost like your microchip in your body, kind of like, well, this is the generation you're in, and this is what you guys are all here to do. And it's so great that we come into an equinox period with the generation kind of being activated again. So I think the universe is wanting us to pay attention to this equinox. This is the universe, the gears shifting heavily on Earth. I mean, this is where the whole Earth switches teams with how the whole entire, sun hits the Earth. I mean, this is always a huge shift. I mean, the equinoxes, I think, are the most two powerful shifts, Aries and Libra. I don't think it gets more powerful.
Exactly, because it determines the length of sunlight. And, each day now we will see less and less sunlight and more of the darkness. And, that gives way to a multitude of different celebrations and harvest home and all of the festivals around winding the year down and eventually arriving at the solstice. So this is an exciting period of the year, and it is the period when we do start to contemplate reaping the rewards of our efforts. So again, this kind of loops back into that idea of what has your generation done in service to the advancement of the human experience, and are you willing or desiring to reap the rewards of that activity?
Yeah, and Libra time is always a very contrast kind of shift. We finish Virgo, which is very intense, very reality, very earthy as far as the harvest time of getting your reality together. And now things come into this very light, very airy, very intellectual, and very dynamic, because it is a cardinal sign energy where these are new beginnings. In many ways, Virgo is the harvest time where you gather things up and you kind of prepare for the end in many ways, whereas this is a new beginning now where you have your harvest, you have all this bundle, and now it's kind of like where you step into your life in a whole new position. There's a whole new 6 months to look at as you're going to come into fall or winter or spring and summer for all those Australians out there, because I know we got a lot of Australians. It's like we are at this dynamic period, and this week gives you Pluto direct. So it allows you, because Capricorn to me and Pluto is really one of the most powerful placements we all have in our charts right now, is this ability to really plan correctly, this ability to really step into a structure into our life, to build the correct plan. And this has to do with destiny. I believe that these are destiny points we have really stepped into again. And in many ways, we have to look at the last time Pluto went stationary and retrograde was in April of this year. So in many ways, the last 6 months was a whole retrograde period of reviewing your plans in your life, reviewing your destiny. And it's interesting that we are turning the switch on now to kind of bring back these last 6 months of energies to kind of put us back in this period that we were in April of last year, which I think you'll start to notice that events that happened in April, or maybe projects you were doing, or energies that you were putting your life towards in April, can in many ways feel like it's coming back to you, that the tides are receding. This is also funny because Saturn is 2 degrees away from 11 degrees, that's where Saturn went retrograde. So Saturn's coming up to get out of its shadow period. So I think, you know what, if you're starting to feel Twilight Zone with events and people and circumstances coming back from the beginning of this year, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, Neptune is adding its energy to this process, because whenever you have Pluto and Saturn advancing and Neptune continuing to go backwards, it's definitely trying to color all of these different circumstances that you're dealing with. So that Neptunian influence, and of course Chiron is there in Pisces also exerting its influence. So we will be seeing a lot of inner awakenings, a lot of healings, and a lot of this will be related to events that, like you mentioned, happened back in spring, that are now full circle, and we're getting that release, we're getting that advance, and moving in the right direction now.
Yeah, and Jupiter, here we are, 17 degrees. It's got 3 degrees left until it starts to station. So this is going to be a final expansion month, I believe, here at the end of September and all of October, that we're really going to see. We're going to see a lot of growth, a lot of emotions. Just when you think that your emotions have been expanded enough, there's more to expand. So Jupiter in Cancer seems to be really expanding our lives and bringing a lot of fruit to us in many ways, a lot more than we saw in the last year with Gemini energy. I think we're really starting to see our lives grow. I mean, it's so interesting to see the economy is the best it's been doing in 5 years as we're stepping into all this energy. and I think we're going to see a continued growth with Jupiter for a while. So, I'd pay attention to this week. You can still grow rapidly, and with Sun in Libra, this is really beautiful energy, and the Sun is in a good aspect here for close to a week. So this is a really nice week. I'd really use the energy right. I'd step into your new plans. I'd step into these relationships, which I think we're going to see a lot more relationship energy continue to play out, because not only did Venus pass over Saturn in the node in Scorpio, and of course Venus in Scorpio likes to bring out a lot of truth, but Mars and Venus square this week. And this is masculine and feminine energy kind of at a square. This is Leo and Scorpio energy at a square, which is love, which is passion, meeting up and making sure that your heart and your desires all come together. And in relationships, this is kind of going to bring a little bit of a clash, but I think it's all to bring the best out of your relationships, whether to test to see if true passion is there, and if true love is there, and if masculinity and femininity can find ways to work themselves out.
Yeah, well, and that's a classic combination, is the Leo Scorpio, and we've seen that over and over throughout history. And most recently, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, beautiful example of the Leo Scorpio union. And once again, you've got that Mars energy in Leo, the feminine energy in Scorpio, and so really it's a time where we recognize our differences and honor each other as far as our commitment in partnerships. So yeah, this could be a very powerful week for a lot of different relationships, and watching them evolve and shift forward. The other thing I find interesting is that Jupiter will be going retrograde just as it touches the third decan of Cancer. And sometimes it's good to stop and look at the individual degrees and recognize what's happening as far as the intensity, because each sign, you can break it down into thirds, each third being 10 degrees. And as Jupiter hits that second edge there and is moving into that third degree of Cancer, that's when you really see the intensity of Cancer fully come through. Because at first you have a Cancer, which is a multiplicity. You have Cancer, then you have Scorpio Cancer, and then finally you have Pisces Cancer. And this is when you really get that fusion of the spiritual, emotional union going on, and Jupiter is going to run with that. It's going to expand on that, and then it'll start to move back. So it's going to be an interesting cycle when Jupiter does finally arrive at that point in a couple of weeks, and we can examine that even further.
Well, how interesting that you bring all that up, as how interesting we're talking about the Mars-Venus energy. Venus trines Jupiter this week, all while Mars is squaring it. So,
right.
This is at these final degrees here, the second decan, which, is a very meat and potatoes, kind of like the middle of the energy. And even though Mars is squaring it, there is this really good aspect to, I think, some of these clashes. Believe it or not. I mean, that might sound crazy, but I think that understanding our differences, I think understanding this dynamic energy, it can be very dynamic. I mean, this can be very powerful. The positive in a Mars-Venus square is, there's intensity, there's drive, there's intense passion, and I think some very raw energy can come in relationships this week, and I think it's needed. I've been calling this energy kind of the sushi of your soul, and as you're tasting the sushi that you like in your relationships and finding the one that just really hits it with the wasabi, right? And it really Jupiter at Cancer is going to really explore these new feelings in your relationships, explore these commitments maybe that you can make in relationships. Well, Mars is there wanting real passion and real love, and it's going to put that passion to the test. Mars in Leo is very competitive. Leo does want to win, and I think that there's some competition, or in your relationships, I think, you've got to prove that you're gonna get it. I don't think this causes for like, you know, easy relationships. I think it really you have to put the work in, but it's worth it, you know, in the end.
Well, yeah, the chemistry between the two, again, is what ultimately leaves a legacy, and I think we'll see legacies being created, being born during this passage. A lot of people who are in relationships may decide, okay, let's have the baby, let's make it, you know, permanent here, let's commit for the long haul and raise a child. And that's really, you know, what you see very often in this kind of hookup between Scorpio and Leo. The dynamic is there for creating progeny. So it may be time for you in your relationship to make that kind of a commitment and you know, start planning for the future.
Yeah, it is very future. I think Jupiter in Cancer is always very kind of the future of your route, you know, the future of where you're taking life. I think because Jupiter's involved, there's a ticket somewhere with these relationships. There's an expansion that could have a door opening, a portal opening. I think that you bring up legacies, especially as Pluto's gone direct, you know, and we're starting to build karma now. I think with Pluto going direct, you know, a lot of karma has receded. We've been given it, and now this allows for more karma to be built now. I think this is a building of karma now between relationships, where we've seen a lot of like sorting through karma. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you've been digging in the dirt, you know, that kind of energy where you're having to make adjustments around screw-ups and infidelities and things like that. Now, all of a sudden, time for forgiveness, time to get past all that stuff and to start moving forward and creating a vision for the future. So, and of course, you know, like you were saying, we've got Jupiter in Cancer. Cancer, of course, is the fourth house, the home. And that's where we raise our children. That's where we create our progeny and create the things that others will inherit from us. It all comes from that Cancerian placement.
Yeah, and for most this week, you know, the moon's in Taurus, and then it comes into Gemini. So I think midweek, there's a lot of questions, especially with these relationships, a lot of curiosity. You know, our emotions are really stimulated this week, especially as the moon does trine the sun this week in air signs, which it's been, you know, 3 months since we've had anything like this happen. So there's a lot of curiosity. I think there's a lot of mental growth this weekend, a lot of, you know, our thoughts becoming more clear, especially because Mercury's in such a great place. And the Mercury and the moon then trine here on the 25th, you know, into 26th, the end of the week, as, you know, we end our week here on our show. And this is all while we lead up towards that Friday that will be with you next week when Mars and Venus exactly square. You know, the moon comes in to square the sun for the 3/4 square. And another dynamic week where I think we see where the change has brought us, you know.
Yeah, and we're also starting to get some relief from the intensity that we were experiencing the last 4 or 5 months here, and especially the last 10 days. You know, I'm hearing a lot of people say, my God, you know, my life just turned upside down on me twice, and then it turned back around and it got really good. So we've had a lot of flip-flop energy. Now it's going to become more social, more, you know, communication-oriented. People are going to be able to get out and have fun, and that's exactly what we're going to see as the sun continues to advance into Libra. It's not so much party time, but it's a much lighter passage, and I think we'll be able to relax more and to regenerate.
Yeah, and to get your balance back, you know, to get your harmony back in your life. And although, you know, we have to be real, this sun is about to come here as it pretty much steps into October. Is it's going to square Pluto, oppose Uranus, and do that square to Jupiter. So, you know, we are coming into some nice waters, but again, the universe seems to have this really nice plan to keep bringing us a lot of change, and you know, we're preparing again, but I think we're preparing in harmony this time. And I think that a lot of concrete was poured, especially as Saturn and the node conjuncted in Scorpio. You know, it's a lot of structuring, restructuring, a lot of construction on your soul, and some concrete was poured. And so you can be relieved to know that you're in that energy, that, you know, in many ways, you don't have to wait around for it to dry. I think we can kind of like walk on the concrete this week, you know, when you're a kid and you want to go walk on it real bad, but it's wet. I think that the tape is removed, and, you know, we go see where this road takes us.
Exactly. And if you're clever enough, you grab a stick and write your name in the concrete and leave your legacy. So let's see what the cards have to say about this coming week. It's usually interesting what gets revealed with tarot. And interestingly enough, we were talking about legacy in the first card up. And this definitely dominates the entire weekend. We have got the Ten of Pentacles. And here you see the grandfather and the grandchild, and that sense of family, harmony, passing wisdom from one generation to another. And that really is what that advance with the sun moving into Libra is going to open the door for us to, you know, clarify what it is that we have learned in life, and then be able to share that with people that we feel will be able to carry that legacy into the future. As we kind of hit the spike on Sunday, we've got the Ace of Swords. So Sunday, you might want to do a little review and determine exactly what it is that you want to disconnect from. I mean, this is the sun getting fully placed in the sign of Libra, and the sword is the symbol of air signs. And we use that sword, we use the air energy, the mental energy, to exercise discernment and decide what is contributing in a positive way in our life, and then cut ourselves free from the things that are no longer relevant or important to us. As we hit into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, back to work, and look at that, Mars definitely coming into full force. We've got the Emperor, and we're able to move to new heights. We're at a point here where we can climb a little bit higher, get a little bit more clarity, breathe a little deeper. So once again, that airy energy is definitely being reinforced in the first part of the coming week here. As we hit midweek, we'll be watching the moon move into Taurus, and then into Gemini. So a lot of stuff that you've been noticing with your dreams, with your intuition, those intuitive flashes, you'll finally realize what those things meant. So, and I know that, you know, you were talking about dream cycles. I've been having a lot of really intense dreams myself as we've had this full moon unfold. And I think a lot of those things will come back, and we'll be able to figure out exactly what the symbology was. It's like, oh, I dreamt about that last week. Now I understand what it means. So a very interesting week. Good cards coming up. Good activity, interaction with planets. And it'll be interesting to see what our feedback is like, because our last video, we had some great feedback. I really, you know, had a lot of fun going through and reviewing what people left as far as their observations and validations of what we're communicating about.
Yeah, how interesting this moon card comes up right as the Mars-Venus energy really starts to square itself. And, you know, there could, and because Venus is in Scorpio, I think there's a lot that could come up in relationships still. The universe is really, I mean, and we're in Sun and Libra. I think it's very interesting to see how much the universe is fiddling the relationship energy. I mean, it just really will not go away. And so with that moon card, there's always weird things that are exposed up. I think that, you know, dark stuff, emotional stuff. And I think in the relationships, pay attention to how you feel. Pay attention to what these emotions are coming up, because I think they're your guide into maybe seeing through a liar in a relationship. Or, you know, I think there's a lot to play out here in your partnerships this week, and a lot of those legacies being formed. And I think if the emotions feel right, you know they are. If they feel off, I think that Moon card and that Emperor card, those are some intense cards to have when you're dealing with people and relationships. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, yeah, but the Emperor, you know, you look at him, and he's sitting in his throne way up there on a mountaintop, and there are eagles flying above him. And I always see that as being able to get to that loftier realm where you can review what's going on in relationships, review what's going on in your life, and then, you know, apply the necessary solution if there are problems that have been revealed. And, you know, is it important enough for you to dump somebody because of an indiscretion that has come along, or, you know, do you see the potential and the power of the union? So, again, I go back and reference Bill and Hillary, and how there were multiple opportunities for Hillary to dump Bill, but the fact is he's turned out to be, you know, an incredibly good source of advancement for her own interests, and ultimately they worked out their issues and moved into the future and made the relationship, you know, once again a very forceful and powerful union. And I think a lot of people are going to have to make that kind of judgment call over the next couple of weeks. Do I dump this person, move on, or can we get past you know, these upheavals and end up turning our relationship into something that is not only a power base to operate from, but is rewarding for everybody involved.
That was amazing, Chris. I don't think it gets any better than that right there.
Yes,
Seriously.
well,
Really,
thanks to Bill and Hillary.
I tip my hat to you on that one. And I think when you pay attention to all this, the masculine energies in Leo, which I think goes well with that Emperor card, and the feminine energies in Scorpio, that Moon kind of energy, and especially the Moon card, it actually plays out the Scorpio energy very well. The way that it's got the wolves howling, and you know, it's the feminine energies in this very rich and deep and intense emotional energy. The masculine energies, you know, in a very Emperor kind of, you know, like, you know, competitive, kind of strong, masculine energy. And we're going to see these two play out. And I think you played it well with the Bill Hillary analogy perfectly.
Yeah, we can learn from the history, and we are creating history every day that we're here on the planet. And this is a week to, you know, once again, put some attention on that. What kind of a legacy are you leaving? Are you interested in making a commitment, perhaps raising a child? And if a child isn't in your future, maybe raising a puppy.
Or kitty.
There you go.
Well, Chris, wow. Wow, another great one. And thank you, everybody, for, again, leaving your comments on the last one. You know, we've been really enjoying so much of the support. And, yeah, thank you again, Chris. You did amazing. Really, you had some really great insights on this one, and you know, I really tip my hat off to you.
Well, thank you, David, and I also enjoy watching you project into the future, because you're very good at seeing when these planets are going to eventually come into conflict or come into harmony. And so I think that's really one of your great gifts, is you're very, very lucid, and you can look into the future very clearly and project the activity that is in our future.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think we do it great together, and I'm just so happy to have you in my life and to do this with you. It's so much fun, and you know, I've been getting a lot of people that have been, you know, writing on Facebook and everything, saying they really, you know, enjoy this show, and I think this show is so important even in my own life. You know, I base a lot of my week off, okay, yeah, we had that with Chris, and I think of your cards and our conversations, and it's what gets me through my own week as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a major contribution to my life as well. So the big thing is to get out there and have fun with this weekend, and to enjoy the relationships in this coming week, and see if you can get them back on track or find a new vision for the future for your relationships.
I know, believe me, I've been meeting some crazy people living on Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's been interesting. Oh wow. But wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Chris, and I look forward to talking to you again next week.
Yes, I think we're going to have a fantastic week to talk about too. So thank you, David.
All right, buddy. I'll see you then.
Yes, good night.
Bye.